Hi folks, Chris of the Polish Geek, and ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the review of the King of the Hill revival, King of the Hill season 14, because I finally found the time to binge watch all the new 10 episodes, and oh my gosh, Hank Hill is back, baby! Yeah, this is what I'm talking about. This is a perfect way to revive the show for the modern era, and the first thing I have to say is that, screw Family Guy, King of the Hill for the win. But yes, I really love the King of the Hill show. I always think that Hank Hill is such a great character, and I always love his relationship with his family. Dang it, Bobby! Or what? As well as his friends, Dale, Boomhauer, and Bill. So it was so nice to see Hank Hill back for the modern day. But I have to say, because I reacted to the trailer, that it seems like the trailer was pretty much the first episode only, and then the rest we've pretty much been in the dark. But I end up really loving this season. This is a perfect revival of the show for the modern era, full of poking at so many jokes and references to the modern day and how would Hank Hill react to all of these. But the first thing I have to talk about is that Hank Hill and Peggy have actually been away in Saudi Arabia for a couple of years, and Hank Hill has been working there, and now they came back to US only to Texas, specifically where they are from, only to see how much of it has changed, and Hank Hill completely being very much confused by the modern crazy woke culture, and especially in the first episode. Later it kind of gets into different things, but yes, and this was all so hilarious, and this is pretty much Hank Hill I know. It's not like I would actually expect Hank Hill to ever live in Saudi Arabia, but it made sense in the context of this story. But I have such a good time with it. While Hank Hill's son, Bobby, now works at a restaurant, and he's a chef at this restaurant, and I mean, it's a Japanese-German restaurant, so, and that's where Bobby lives. Now he's basically a college student. But also this revival is in many ways kind of another thing of my dream come true, because I've been speculating for the last couple of years, how would Hank Hill react to the modern crazy society? I mean, he's already been like this, while pretty close-minded, but also only sane guy around his friends already in the original episodes. But then I always thought, if Hank Hill seen the modern crazy society, he would lose his mind. But this show is exactly what we all needed, because I very much think that Hank Hill is just a perfect character to bring back in the modern day and throw into the modern society. He would be so confused, and adding the idea of the fact that he lived for last few years in Saudi Arabia with his wife, Peggy, adds all the more interesting nuance to all that. But one of the things I actually found pretty interesting is that in one of the episodes it's revealed that in Saudi Arabia Hank Hill learned to love soccer, actually. If anyone remembers the quote by Hank Hill in the original series, "Soccer was invented by European women to keep them busy while the men did the cooking." This sounds such a far cry from this new Hank Hill, who very much loves soccer, and his friends, especially Dale of all people, are so shocked, naturally so, but it all completely makes sense, because
I love soccer, Peggy.
as even was said in this old episode, the rest of the world is very much obsessing over soccer, so it makes sense. Hank Hill basically went abroad, and now he changed and now loves soccer. But this was actually such an interesting twist on the character, actually. But I already been talking about his son Bobby, but I also really dug the romance story of Bobby and the girl he had a crush on. I thought their romance was really interesting and quite well done, with also some pretty references to modernism, because open relationships is another thing that sadly became pretty common in modern culture, which I completely personally don't understand. Why can't you just stay faithful to your one lover? But getting probably a little too controversial. But Bobby's crush had a boyfriend with whom she was in an open relationship, and that completely confuses Bobby, as I think it confuses a lot of people actually, but I really liked all that. It was all so interesting, but their relationship and chemistry I thought was really great. In some ways it feels like now Bobby is another main character together with Hank, because in the all the episodes it felt like basically Hank was the main character with Bobby as a supporting protagonist and his son. But now with Bobby being a grown adult, he basically became another main character in the show, and I honestly wouldn't be surprised in the subsequent seasons if they are planning them, and please do, because we totally need more of that. But I wouldn't be surprised if he started taking over if Bobby started taking over as the protagonist, although I personally hope if they stick both with Hank and Bobby, because Hank is completely the heart of the show, so I hope that Bobby doesn't take over. Like, I don't mind them just both being main characters. That's how I think the creators should just stick with that. This is just how it would work best. But speaking of which, that's another thing I really love, the father-son dynamic between Hank and Bobby. And basically Hank, because another thing we all know about Hank is fan of propane, but because Bobby uses charcoal in the restaurant, Hank understandably is very disappointed, but then he realizes how much he actually loves the food that Bobby prepares in the restaurant. But I think that King of the Hill season 14 is such a perfect revival. And another thing I'm glad is that as much as they very much poked fun in the modern world and very much show how Hank reacts to the modern world, and I really loved all that and I was really appreciated, I'm glad they didn't make any specific references to modern election. I mean, they did very much to COVID, and I gotta even reference that. I really love the new opening. I mean, it's still a same classic opening. Dun, 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 and then Hank standing with Dale, Boomhauer, and Bill. But now the opening is extended, and then suddenly Hank disappears at some point from the scene, since he's left for Saudi Arabia, and then we see at one point all of them wearing masks, obviously referring to the lockdown pandemic period, and with the guys having masks and Hank not being around but being in Saudi Arabia. And then at the very end, Hank with Bobby and Peggy return to the picture since they returned to Texas. So yep, I really love that modern opening upgrade. But another thing I have to talk about is that I also think Dale is still as funny as ever. They sadly changed the voice actor, which I admit I'm not particularly happy about, because the original one was so much better, but I'm glad that other than that Dale is still as funny as ever. But there is one more thing I did have indeed a problem with, but I'm hoping they very much fix it in subsequent seasons. Where is Hank's niece Luann? Like, where is she? She wasn't even mentioned, even though she was practically like a fourth member of the family in the very first original King of the Hill season. And when I first watched it, I even didn't know she was Bobby's cousin. I thought she was like Hank's daughter and Bobby's older sister. So why isn't Luann even mentioned? But oh well, all we can do is hope that they very much fix that and do mention Luann in subsequent seasons, or actually hopefully bring her back, actually, because she totally deserves to be bring back. So please bring back Luann, we all deserve her. But yes, I started saying that, but then I kind of like went on a tangent and started talking about other things that I very much loved in that revival. But now I'm getting back to it, and I will say I'm really glad though they didn't make any references to modern election, which I think is for the best, because it will probably only divide the audience. Like, some would argue, Hank Hill vote for this, no, he'll never do it, etc, etc, even though, so yes, that will probably really divide the audience. So I guess it was for the best, even though I personally very much can easily think it's obvious who Hank Hill vote for. Like, obviously Trump. There's no way in the world that he would ever vote for Harris, but I mean, Bobby likely would, but there's absolutely no way in any world that Hank Hill of all people would ever vote for Kamala. So yeah, for me it's an easy common sense who would Hank Hill vote for, but I guess it's for the best that they didn't ultimately go down that road. But I'm very much now hoping for more, because this shouldn't just end right there. Like, I literally binged all the 10 episodes and was really laughing the whole time because all the jokes landed with me. And so please keep going with King of the Hill revival. Like, maybe don't overgo with it. Like, 4 seasons will be enough, but no, don't stop there. We need at least 2 more seasons, for this King of the Hill revival, because you're really off to a good start. Like, this is truly what Hank Hill in the modern society would look like. So please keep going with more King of the Hill episodes. This is a perfect revival, and please, we want more. So thank you, folks, for checking out this review. Press the like button, please subscribe to this channel, and did you see King of the Hill revival? And talk to you soon. Bye.